speaking of which, I think we should drift on to one of your greater claims, because there's loads I want to talk to you about, 'cause especially during our pre-show chat, you've already tweaked my nipples of interest, so I think it's well worth delving into some of those things. But one of the things people may know you very well for is the book you wrote with Brian May about the Red Special. Ta-ching!
I don't know what you mean.
Me neither. Buy your copy now.
That's the version you can't get yet, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is a lifetime achievement award for me. That if I could have been born and said, "What would you like to do?" It's do that, and I'm very lucky to have. I got myself into it. I hasten to add, it wasn't down to anybody but for me, really.
Right. Before you start the story, everyone, make yourself comfortable. Oh, Em's also doing her radio show shortly, so just stick around as long as you can, Em. Right.
Oh, it's so new. This is a new copy. This is a copy I'm saving to get signed.
Sexual chocolate, baby.
Right. That guy's crazy. Right, hit me, baby.
Okay, I'm sitting comfortably. Hopefully everyone is too. Let us hear the magical story of how you and the Red Special book came about. Take it away.
The magical story. Well, talking about what every guitar player says, every guitar player has a hero, every single one, and you don't necessarily have to play like them, but you have to have a guitar hero. Mine has always been Brian May. I remember hearing Bohemian Rhapsody when I was 10, running around in the snow in February 1976 when Somebody to Love came out. And I didn't know he had a homemade guitar. I didn't know what I was hearing was a guitar. But when I started getting into music, like properly, in 1978, I was 13, 14. A mate of mine at school had an album by Queen called Jazz. So I said, "Oh, can I borrow that?" And he went, "All right then." I didn't know who they were other than they did that funny Bohemian Rhapsody song, Biz Miller and all that. And I put it on, and the first track on Jazz is a track called Mustafa. It's a very strange.
It's a great tune.
It's a right tune, and Freddie's doing this sort of imam sort of. I won't, fair enough. But he's allowed because he's from Zanzibar, so he's allowed to do that. And within, I don't know, a minute of that, there's a triple guitar break that goes. And I remember I'd been hit by the Love Thunderbolt much later in life, twice actually. Thank you. Unfortunately, I'm married to the second one of those, which is Ace.
Well done.
But I remember, but donk, what on earth is that? And my fascination with Queen began on that date in 1978. I subsequently bought. I thought it was a long story. I subsequently bought all of the albums up to that point, which was 1980. So I even bought a Hot Space, which is the worst thing I've ever heard, and Flash Gordon, which isn't. I bought all of them up to that point, apart from Sheer Heart Attack.
Be careful what you say about Flash.
Let me finish. That's okay. He saved every one of us.
Exactly.
But I didn't buy Sheer Heart Attack because they were all greased up and very gay. For which I apologise for that Neanderthal thought of my teenage self. No, Flash Gordon's great. I saw them on the Play the Game tour, and they started with Flash, and it was just the most exciting thing I've ever heard. Anyway, so that's why I was in Queen. Everybody likes Queen.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's no reason not to.
No.
I can't. He's a bit gay, but that We Were Rocky's quite good, isn't he? So everybody likes Queen. Even our mums like Queen. Let's not beat around the bush.
True. My mum does like Queen.
She does. So I'm a guitarist, and one of the many things I used to do during the 90s, we had a music show, a guitar show. Not as good as ours, Jace. It's okay. It's all dead now. Or may as well be. Called the National Music Show. So I worked that 1997, 98, 99. 97 was okay. 98 was okay. But 1999, we really upped the stakes. Me and the editor of Rhythm magazine at that time, who's a lovely lady called Louise King, who's one of my friends. Hello, Lou. We decided, right, let's really up the ante. So she knew a lot of people in the drum world. So she got Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers and Steve White, who was playing with Oasis at the time. And I didn't know him at the time, but a massive Japanese drummer called Jumbo Akira.
I know the name.
I hope I pronounced the name. But those are some big names. And because I'd interviewed Brian the year previously in 1998 for a cover of Guitarist, I'd become friends with his guitar tech, a guy called Pete Malandrone, who I'm still very good friends with. So I rang Pete and said, does Brian fancy coming and playing this thing? Just like you'd ring your mate's dad who plays a bit. It really was like that. And a common theme in the story is the trust that these people have for any journalist, really. But because we'd had a good interview, it was mostly Neville, to be honest. I just sat there going, while Brian was talking about. It wasn't that far away. It really wasn't that far away.
Don't blame you.
So I went through 3 or 4 months dealing with Jim Beach, who's Queen's manager, sending faxes. Those were the days, pre-internet, I hasten to add. And to cut a long story short, we got Brian May. Well, I got Brian May, to be honest, to play at the National Music Show. So we had on the I think it was the Sunday. Was it the Sunday internet? We had Paul Gilbert, who I got through Simon Fraser Clarke at Laney. Then Steve White did a set on drums, and then we had Brian May. And it was just, I just like chatting like this in front of like 2,500 people. Lots of people. I'm a member of lots of Red Special forums these days, and there are some really interesting and knowledgeable people on there, irrespective of what people's preconceptions of fora might be. And lots of people were there, and I was thinking, if I'm a fan of Queen, I'd love to go and see some lucky fat bastard like me in a Mesa Boogie suit, which is what I was wearing, a Mesa Boogie shirt, talking to Brian May. But Brian, I thought, well, what's he going to be like? And Brian's just a real professional. He could see I was a little bit nervous, a bit out of my depth. Once we got into it, it was fine. It was just chatting. But he had the guitar, and Peter got the full rig, and he did the delay thing and all this sort of stuff. And he sort of said, thank you very much. And while Chad was doing his thing, we were just chatting, me and Brian, and I think his PA lady was there, Sarah, who still works for him there, just chatting. And Brian said to me, you should come round and have tea. Now I thought, well, is that a euphemism? Or I don't. Will he rock me?
Does it matter?
I don't mind if I do. Does it? No, absolutely not. Because I really am the wider the waistband, the deeper the quicksand. Or so I have read. I really am the case with that. Chad finished, and Chad came out all covered in sweat. He said, "Real Brian, whatever accent he's got. Come on." So between them two, decided that they will play We Will Rock You. So Chad went back on in front of all of our punters that we had, and did that like that. And I was sat, I've got goosebumps talking about it. I was with Louise, editor of Rhythm, who got Chad, and Brian just went and did that, and I just looked at Louise, and she was crying to bits, and that set me off. And we're really good mates. She's happily married, and so am I. So it was nothing like this. We just hugged each other at the side of the stage, while Chad Smith and Brian May, that we had organised to get to this bloody show for our bloody publishing company, bloody, to play We Will Rock It. So on the back of that, we developed a good working relationship. As I said, I'm really good personal friends with Pete Malandrone, and we're still mates. We're proper mates. So fast forward 10 years or so, we used to get lots of books come through to the guitarist, and we got a version of the Black Strat, which is Dave Gilmour's big guitar. Sorry, I'm talking dribble. I'm getting all really excited.
No.
It was a guitar. It was a book about everybody else listening. Sorry, lads. A guitar about Dave Gilmour's Black Strat that his tech had written. So, that'd be good. I can take Pink Floyd. I can take them or leave them. But maybe something was in the back of my head was going, So I was reading it, and the repro, which is the images that were cut out, was really poor. And I thought it wasn't written very well. Sorry. Phil Taylor was the name of the tech there, I've remembered. I thought, it'd be great if somebody would do a version of that book about Brian May's guitar. Because most of the inner sanctum of fans know that he built it himself.
Yeah.
but the casual fan who likes listen to Radio Gaga on the radio won't necessarily know that Brian had made the guitar by himself not by himself, and made it at home with his dad.
Yeah.
So I just rang Pete and I said, "What about this?" And he said, "Well, it sounds like a good idea to me." Good idea to me, Bradders. So he said, "Well, why don't you just put a plan together?" Pitch basically the idea to pitch the idea to Brian. Now, anybody else doing that, or Pete, I write a book about the guitar. Pete would be very wary about saying, "Oh yeah, do that," because it's not down to him.
Yeah.
But because of the professional relationship that I had with Brian, interviewing on stage, interviewing a couple of times for the magazine since, I'd been to his house and, one of them, the Country Pile, and hadn't been a dick, which is, it's the whole trust thing.
Yeah.
So I put together a pitch which took 3 or 4 months, a whole plan, all the chapters. I knew that Brian wanted a particular bit about him playing on the roof of Buckingham Palace that he'd written himself. And we decided that was probably its most famous appearance, even more so than Live Aid, believe it or not. And I was invited down to the house and went with him and Pete and a couple of people who I can't remember now, just sort of like Brian's inner sanctum, just to pitch it. I got a few mock-ups of the cover and a couple of layouts done by an art editor mate of mine, and sold it to him. And he went, yeah. He's pretty non-committal. That's what he does. That's for him being really, really enthused about something. And the centerpiece of the book is where we took the guitar apart, and it's had a couple of restorations. It only had one at that stage by an Aussie guy called Greg Fryer, who did it in 1998, who took it apart, but it hadn't been taken apart since they finished it in 1964 prior to there.
Wow.
So I said to Bri, listen to me talking to him, I said to him, the great doctor, how would you feel about us taking the guitar apart? And he went, like that, and said that would be interesting. So he gave us permission, subsequently, not there and then, to take the guitar apart, which,
bit nerve-wracking.
It wasn't me that did it. I stood in the corner laughing and crying at the same time. It was Andy Guyton and Nigel Knight who build lots of stuff for Brian. Andy builds guitars for Brian and other people. And Nigel puts racks together and maintains the amps. Now dear old Mike Hill has passed on. All the best, Mike. But anyway, so we had this whole pitch thing. I had to go to Carlton Books and pitch the whole idea, although it was a slam dunk really, because Brian was happy with it and Jim Beach was happy with it.
Yeah.
And I had a deadline of June in 2013, which I hit. Thank you very much. And Brian was thank you very much. Brian was in the process of putting Queen plus Paul Rodgers together.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were touring throughout that whole winter. And, Brian's not somebody you can say, not me, it wasn't my responsibility to nag him to get his copy in, but every word had to be approved by him.
Yeah.
And the publishers were getting closer and closer to the deadline where he's going to need to say yes, or we're going to have to fold the whole thing. Jesus. And it got to March the following year. And apparently, this is all over my head. It's nothing to do with me. I write it and then that's it.
Yeah.
Said he needs to approve this weekend or it's screwed. And he was in the Ukraine at the time. Queen fans remember when he played it in the Ukraine in front of 350,000 people. The night he came off stage, that's when he proofed my book, which is really strange. I mean, the narrative that's in there is from a big interview. It's not me writing it from the third person. It's all the first person. And I suppose I did a lot more work than a ghostwriter would, because my name's on the cover, which I'm very grateful for him saying. But we did a whole interview that I'd planned word for word, chapter for chapter, verse for verse, and fitted into the jigsaw puzzle that I'd pitched, that I'd made.
Yeah.
And that's how it went. And then the new version was supposed to come out in May this year, which had an updated chapter list. So it had an updated gallery section. It had 2 new chapters, one on the film, of course, and the other on the various restorations and repairs that the guitar has had since 2013. And that's where Andy Guyton and Nigel Knight come in, and Pete as well. Those are the guys who pointed me in the right direction for questions to ask him, to Brian. But honestly, I'm sure he's like this with everybody else. But the second time for these extra chapters, it was just me, Pete, and him drinking coffee and talking biscuits. Or we're talking bollocks, I should say. Eating biscuits, talking about the film and talking about the new volume control, and that one of the fret markers on the 12th fret had disappeared, and what else had happened, I can't remember offhand, that the bodywork was falling apart. Just talking like he's a normal guy. Now, to get to that position, I'm very lucky like that, because you do have to know how to handle yourself with that, because it's Brian May and you're in his home. And, you can't go in there and be a fan. You can't go in there and be a dick. But you also can't go in there and be a shrinking violet. So one of the things that's fortunate for me in this regard is that he wouldn't let me keep going back if he thought I was an idiot. Just talking with the right amount of reverence, but without, kissing his feet, quite frankly, which is obviously what you spent the whole time wanting to do. But if you're there, and as a massive Queen fan, you're there with me, with the Red Special, playing the bloody Red Special while Brian's there passing the biscuits over and Pete's taking pictures, it's a dream come true. It really is. And on the way down, driving down, I'm shitting myself, and on the way home, I'd never shut up. But at the time, as long as you're all right, then that's what it is. And that's where the relationship comes with these sort of guys. A bit of trust, a bit of empathy for what they're like. Yeah. Because Queen have never been bigger, really. No. That film, which has done $1 billion in the box office, it's beyond belief. They're bigger than ever. They really